There are really, really good things about a minimum wage, mostly when it comes to the prices of goods from outside the jurisdiction that is having the wages increased. But it's extremely complicated. And we have now a story. It's actually old, but it was updated recently. Higher minimum wage means restaurants raise prices and fewer employee hours survey finds. The challenge with a minimum wage is that it affects different industries in different ways. And I was thinking about this and I thought, look, if we just do a blanket fast increase, the cost of everything goes up, and then people are going to demand higher wages to cover the cost. So it's very, very simple. If someone has to make a birdhouse, and he sells the birdhouse for $10 with a small profit, if you raise the salary of that birdhouse maker, the cost of the labor to produce the birdhouse goes up with it. So inherently, nothing really gets solved except for imported goods. So the cost of a laptop produced in China is not impacted by a wage increase in New Jersey, for the most part. So it actually might be benefited by this. So look at it this way. If you raise the wages of everybody in a state, New Jersey, they are more likely to be able to buy the laptop in that other, imported from another jurisdiction, or even produced in a different state where the wages are lower. But there's a lot of, there are challenges with it, especially when it comes to certain industries like the restaurant industry, which we will look at right now. They say, we won't read the bullet points. We'll just go to the story. For restaurants, minimum wage hikes usually mean higher menu prices and fewer employee hours, according to a survey released Wednesday. And I'm pretty sure this was just published. Yeah, wow, new story, updated April, just a couple days ago. Hari, a workplace management software company that works with restaurants, surveyed 173 restaurants between February 28th and March 15th about the impact of raising the minimum wage. The respondents represent more than 4,000 restaurant locations, ranging from fine dining to fast food. Fast food workers across the country have been driving the fight for a higher minimum wage to keep up with the cost of living. States across the U.S. have been raising their minimum wage. 6 states, including Illinois and Maryland, have approved laws phasing in a $15 minimum wage. D.C. currently has the highest at $13.25. And that is set to rise to $14 an hour on July 1st. Wow. One of the best questions I've heard in response to this is, why 15? Why not 30? Right? Why did they stop at 15? And one thing that's often overlooked is that, like as I mentioned early, if they do a minimum wage increase in New Jersey, it's going to hurt businesses a lot. Some are going to go out of business, but it mostly favors the massive corporations that can absorb these costs. Now, they may benefit you if you're getting your milk or whatever in California if they don't have a wage increase. But think about the inverse. If California, which is very blue, does a wage increase, which I believe they are listed? No, they're not. But so think about the cost of the food produced in California. If California raises the minimum wage, then the cost to produce basic food goes up with it because they have to pay people. And then when that food is shipped across the U.S., the price will be reflected, and you're going to see everyone else demanding a higher wage. Interestingly, though, a lot of people in California use undocumented labor to avoid the minimum wages. Now, they pay under the table and then are able to provide cheaper goods. So think about the inherent problem. It's really fascinating to me that this argument doesn't come up among the left, the exploitation of illegal immigrants. Because here's the thing. If you raise the minimum wage, it's only going to impact legal working citizens. Undocumented immigrants are still going to get paid less. But that means that Americans on the minimum wage are going to be able to buy those goods. If you have 2 classes of people working in your country, one that is below the law, that can't get basic rights and necessities, and one that is above, you have second-class citizens. The undocumented workers are going to be told, hey, we got way too many people flooding in the borders. How about we just pay you $5 an hour? And then the McDonald's cashier, who's an American citizen, gets a raise to $15 an hour. Now they're benefiting off of the second-class citizen. So you see how this works. Let's read on. They say, however, the federal minimum wage has remained stagnant since 2009. House Democrats have been pushing a bill to raise the federal wage to $15 per hour. That's just a huge jump. That's like more than double. Proponents of increasing the minimum wage argue that it can stimulate the economy, reduce income inequality, and my allergies are really bad, and decrease taxpayer spending on government assistance programs. Opponents, like the National Restaurant Association, say that it eliminates jobs and hurts small businesses. But not all restaurants oppose these efforts. Notably, McDonald's told the NRA last month, not the gun one, that it would no longer join in its lobbying efforts against minimum wage hikes. Yes, because McDonald's knows if you increase the minimum wage, it will take out the small burger shops and their massive corporations that can absorb those costs. Plus, they're phasing in touchscreens. They don't need the employees anyway. They don't care anymore. The restaurant industry employs a large portion of minimum wage workers. It's no surprise that 83% of survey respondents affected by minimum wage hikes, it's over and over again, minimum wage, reported that their labor costs rose at least 3%. 23% responded to minimum wage hikes by not making any changes to their businesses, but the majority did. The most popular response from 71% of operators was to raise menu prices. Well, duh. Nearly half reworked their food and beverage options to reduce costs. Some operators responded to the hikes by cutting costs, with 64% saying they reduced employee hours and 43% saying they eliminated jobs. Outside the restaurant industry, companies like Bank of America and Target have been hiking internal wages to attract and retain employees in a tight labor market. Similarly, 87% of survey respondents affected by the hikes said that they increased wages for workers who made more than the minimum wage. So here's the thing. The economy is really, really, really good now. And that means it is an employee's market, not an employer's. If you want to find someone to do work, you got to pay competitive rates, right? So even getting someone at McDonald's, you're probably going to have a few people applying because everybody's working. So if you need to expand, it's going to be harder. You're going to have to offer more money and try and poach employees from other places. This is good news for employees. A minimum wage won't necessarily solve any of these problems. But that's why, in a rather interesting twist, you end up with someone like Andrew Yang. Full disclosure, I donated to his campaign. I don't want to say I'm actively supporting him, I'm not campaigning or anything, but I just want to make sure that's clear. I think he's one of the best bets for the Democrats. He said, Loki Coyote tweeted a year ago, Andrew Yang VFA enjoyed your fireside chat with C.S. Schultz. What's your vision for minimum wage policies and how will they interact with UBI? This was in April of last year. He said, leave minimum wage to states, but universal basic income makes it much less necessary. And then, in an interview recently with Jimmy Dore, he straight up said he opposes the minimum wage. You know why? Because the left is too attached. And it's not just the left, okay? It's people in general get too attached to an idea that may or may not make sense as things evolve. So, sure, the left and what makes the left, what makes the right is definitely changing, whatever. Andrew Yang, in my opinion, represents someone who's running for the Democrats, who aligns kind of center-left, and says this idea is outdated. The idea of a minimum wage made sense a long time ago. Maybe it doesn't make sense today. He thinks a value-added tax makes more sense, and doing some kind of dividend program. So a few interesting things to point out, because I am no fan of universal basic income under certain circumstances, right? So typically when you hear about UBI, they tell you that we're going to tax everybody and then give everybody a little bit of money. How does that make sense, right? It's like you're trying to build a perpetual motion machine. You can't take money from everybody to give money to everybody. You can't do it. But that's not what Yang is proposing. And so I was actually like, nah, I don't know. UBI sounds like a bad idea. What he's saying is kind of like what Alaska did. You've got these big companies in Alaska, the oil companies, and they're making tons of profits by shipping out the oil. Alaska gives their citizens a dividend based off the oil profits. That's what Yang's idea is. He said, look, Amazon and these other big companies, they're paying what they legally need to pay in taxes, which is basically nothing. Excuse me, burping. So do a value-added tax, and then from that, Americans get a dividend. This is an interesting idea that goes into the earlier idea I brought up. Oh, man. Excuse my burping. A wage hike can make sense if you're talking about imported goods, but you have to make sure you don't shock your local economy so it can keep functioning. But if everyone makes more money, there will be inflation in New Jersey, but the inflation lag will result in foreign products coming in cheaper, so it can stimulate the economy, and that's why not $30 an hour. That's why $15 an hour. But I don't think that necessarily makes sense anymore because the technological advancement is happening too quickly. Automation, kiosks, self-driving cars, and that's why I think Yang makes a lot more sense. Let Amazon, Facebook, Apple, whatever, sell their products and sell ads overseas to all these other companies, and they pay a VAT where they can. I don't know how you do it with ads necessarily, but that tax can't be escaped. And then that dividend from the massive companies that are automating jobs goes to a universal basic income. That actually makes more sense. We've got a couple issues in terms of monopolization of these massive tech giants, and we could break them up. I don't know if that's the right thing to do, because how do you break up Facebook? You really can't. Facebook's utility is that people are on it. How do you break up Twitter? You can't. The Twitter's utility is that people are on it. You can regulate, for speech in these things, but how do you deal with they operate in foreign countries, they don't got to pay taxes. There's that you tax the product itself. I'm not an expert, so that's why I usually don't advocate for certain things, and it's why I'm rather tepid in a lot of my opinions. But this is a post on the Jimmy Dore page. I just wanted to highlight it. I don't actually want to play it. And you can see that they're saying, like, the DNC cheats. If Yang wins, I'll be suspicious of him. But to the main point, higher minimum wage means restaurants raise prices, fewer employee hours. So right now, it's not working for the lower paid jobs, which is restaurant workers, which is fast food. So it doesn't make sense. And when you get people just demanding $15 an hour, they're not actually trying to solve the problem. It's an emotional response to their tribe. Your tribe needs to be able to adapt to new policies and new ideas as technology and culture evolves. And we'll put it that way. So I think Yang's great. Full disclosure, I donated to him. But I'll leave it at that. And there we are. Another study saying it's not going to work, at least in certain industries. I got some more videos coming up in a few minutes for you. Stick around. I will see you shortly.